You are listening to the default audio track, which includes instructional narrative. To turn off the instructional narrative, simply press the audio button on your DVD remote to listen to music, and press it again to just listen to the sounds of the ride. Welcome everybody to the Tour to Steamboat Stage 3. This is a nice climbing stage. And we'll go over some rollers, hook on with a few people, and then we'll begin our climb in about a half an hour. Today we have another special guest. His name is Michael Seberg, and he wrote Road Biking Colorado, the statewide guide, which is a great guide for road cyclists out here, or if you're looking to just come visit, pick up the book and you can take a look at all the different rides and routes that are out here. But we'll let him talk a little bit about that, and not me. Hey Michael.
How you doing?
Great.
Thanks for the intro.
Oh, sure. So Mike's an avid cyclist. He's also a rock climber. Lives in Denver, Colorado. And is well known for the Road Biking Colorado book. And I bought this book in about 2005, 2006, when I was planning on moving out to Colorado. And I was living in Nevada at the time. And I had no idea that I'd be riding alongside the author.
Oh, it's just another guy writing a book. You know, it's totally a build it and they will come kind of thing. You know, I just took on the project took on a life of its own, and I kept asking myself, what would I want to see in a book like this? And I didn't necessarily just listen to myself. I just thought, what would people want in a book like this? And if I just followed that template, then I knew, that people would at least appreciate the resource.
Well, I did.
Yeah. No, thanks for that. I hear people talk about planning. They plan their whole summer vacation. Let's plan their whole summer vacation with a book. I love hearing that.
Yeah.
Or, it's accurate, or whatever the comments are, it's great. People, I sleep with it by my bed. I hear it called the Bible a lot.
Yeah.
So it's pretty cool. Of course, I was raised going to Sunday school in a Catholic church, so that's a little odd for my book to be called the Bible, but.
So we'll be doing a couple of things. I want to talk to Michael about his book and about also training techniques. He's a avid climber. I mean, both rock climbing, and my impression from your book is that you like bike rides that have some climbing in it.
Yeah, well, it's pretty much all there is in Colorado.
And there's definitely a lot of that kind of goes without saying.
So yeah, if you grow up, spending many years in places like Durango and Aspen, there's really, it's nothing but uphill from town.
Yeah.
With a few flats here and there, but that's about it. So you just you can aspire to it, but really you have no choice. So you either develop an ability for it, or you continue to struggle because they don't go away.
Well, while we're doing this conversation, I'm also going to try to throw in a few tidbits about what you should be doing on the ride right now. For example, we should be in a neutral gear, just ahead of neutral. As we're climbing up this little climb here, let's add some resistance. Make our legs feel the climb a little bit. Our heart rate is jumping into the anaerobic zone. And this is kind of an interval-y start, as we have these rollers that we'll be cranking up over the top of. And now we're coming down the backside, so we can take off resistance and bring the cadence up. You'll notice the two graphs at the bottom. The upper graph is the hill profile, and you can see that the hill starts off at the end and ends the ride. And the lower graph is our effort profile, showing you changes in effort. So right now we're resting a little bit, and we got another little hill coming up, so we're going to add some resistance and work our way up it and bringing the heart rate up. Is it slipping?
I think I just didn't have it tight enough.
All right. And coming down the backside.
Take on the side of the road.
So let's add some resistance. Let's crank up over the top. Just a little resistance. Nothing big down here, but just enough to get our heart rate up. For those of you who are just starting out on this stage, you'll let your heart rate come up on its own. Don't force it up with sprints or any super hard efforts. We're already about 2.5 hours into the century, so the heart rate changes much quicker in the video because we're already tired.
Yeah. Well, these little rollers add up, these warm-ups are always real important. I'm looking at the climb ahead there, and all these little rollers are just what we need. A little bit of effort, back off, a little bit of effort.
Oh yeah.
Back off. By the time we get there, we'll be ready to go. Beautiful scene.
Yeah, it's a beautiful road.
Looking south toward, we're looking south. Can't see the Gore Range yet, but
oh no, we will though.
It's out there to the south.
I think we feel it before we see it.
Yeah. Beautiful jagged peaks of Gore Range. There's some amazing spots up in there. It's one of my first camp trips when I was a kid.
Oh, really?
Up into Eagle's Nest. I was like 15, 14 or 15.
Huh.
I thought it was really something. I had a big old survival knife on my belt. We were hiking there in the middle of the night, and I was a little kid. What do I know? So I was actually worried I might need to use it. But I learned over the years, most of the animals are afraid of you, unless they're desperate.
You see we're taking off resistance, Mike, on the gear guide, spinning it up, adding cadence, and taking off resistance. So my understanding, Mike, is that you mapped out over 6,500 miles of paved roads here in Colorado. Yeah.
That's true. That's hard to believe.
Now, did you actually ride all of these routes, or?
Oh no.
Okay.
Well, here's how the progression went. I mean, to begin with, I've been riding all over the state since, let's see, I bought my first serious bike when I was a summer job when I was 15, and started riding up into the foothills. Schwinn Superlatour. It was quite a heavy bike.
That's funny.
I learned all my bike mechanics on it. Broke it down, painted the frame a couple times. Bike has some memories, but
yeah, old bike.
yeah, it's just trying to think back all the stories. It's amazing.
So we got another roller here. We're heading on up. Resistance is a 7 out of 10.
Really steep little bugger.
Yeah. So what criteria did you use to select the routes on in your book?
Oh, yeah, so to answer your question, I've been riding all over the state all these years, and I would literally look at a map and go, hey, there's a nice squiggly line over a pass that looks like it'd be, and this is from seeing pictures of the Tour de France and other races on very little coverage. We'd get a few photos here and there in the newspaper or an obscure publication. And so you have these dreams of that scene with the big mountain roads, and the riders, and the big climbs. And, so I'd look at a map and, now let's go check out this road. We'll ride from here to here. And a particular story that comes to mind, I think it's in my book actually. I was riding a buddy of mine from Creed to Lake City and back. 100-mile ride, 2 passes. So we got to go up over both sides of each pass. Way there and the way back. And it was Spring Creek Pass and Slumgullion. And I didn't put no mind to 100 miles, 2 passes. Not a big deal for us at the time. But, so we rode up over Spring Creek. Pretty mellow climb out of Creed. And so the first 40 miles was up over the 2 passes. Nice little dip between 2 passes, no big deal. Then we start plummeting into Lake City, down the north side of Slumgullion. 10% grades for 10 miles.
Seriously?
Yeah. Just kept going down and down and down, and just started getting this lump in my throat. Oh, we gotta ride back out of here. 50 miles back out of here. Lake City is one of the most remote towns in the state, so it's just surrounded by wilderness. And
see, they have a mirror out here.
yeah, that's amazing.
It's clear water.
Beautiful. What reservoir is that?
I don't know. You tell me.
I know, I should know. I probably knew the day I drove past.
Yeah, it was on Google. I just forgot to write it down. As you can see on the little mini map, it's a big reservoir. There's a little bit on both sides of the road here.
Yeah. So we got into Lake City and got a cup of coffee, and we got right back on our bikes. So we didn't want to seize up. We knew we had to climb out of there. So it was just one of those days where you just looked at a road on a map, went over there and did it. You got what you got, and that was an epic day.
Wow.
Yeah.
How long have you lived in Colorado?
Well, since '75, since I was in 6th grade. My mom was born and raised here. And when she married, she went to Chicago, and that's where I was born. But when we grew up, the parents split up, and we got to move back to Denver. Mom went home.
So we're on the wheel here. You notice the resistance went down. Taking it a little easier, letting the heart rate come down. As we are got a nice draft.
Honey stinger, love that stuff.
I'm a professional wheel sucker. When did you begin your cycling career? Or the activity, I guess?
Well, that's a kind of continuation of the last story. And as I explored the mountains on a bike, and always dreamed of living in the mountains, as well as exploring them, climbing peaks and such, I got out of high school and moved up to Aspen. Actually, we walked there. A couple buddies of mine and I planned a trip for a year, and we got dropped off in the foothills and walked 13 days through the snow and past Vail and up over the Holy Cross Wilderness and Hunter Frying Pan and into Aspen for supplies. Well, it snowed 2 feet. It was June 7th.
Wow, June 7th. Wow.
2 feet in town. So that was several feet up high, and we're talking busted trees and avalanche danger through the roof. So
wow.
Next thing you know, we all had jobs. And I was like, well, I guess we're not going to Durango or Telluride. We're going to stay in Aspen for the summer at least. So we had jobs. We were staying at the hostel. And the Coors Classic came through. And saw, Bernardino and
wow.
Greg LeMond and the original, all the original guys from the 7-Eleven team. That's the guys I grew up watching. The original Red Zinger in Boulder when it was 3 days.
Oh, wow.
And, I saw them at Wash Park a couple times, Washington Park here in Denver. And, so they came through Aspen after going over Independence Pass. And I was just, man, I got enough of just riding, I want to race. And I went to Gray Wall Sports, which is
Alexi? No kidding.
His father had a bike shop in town. He said, hey, I want to race a bike. Can you help me out? Because here you are working stiff in Aspen, 19-year-old kid. So he put me on some gear and help me get started. And did Aspen club races and stuff. And it was just, I'd always drive to go do other rides everywhere and get over to Mount Evans at least once a year and Trail Ridge Road, do the big epic routes. And over the years, it was just knowing the state, knowing what it is to ride in Colorado and weather and everything. One day I thought, it'd be great if there was a guide. Here I had a library of hiking guides and climbing guides, and there's no cycling guides.
All right.
So when I went, to answer your first question, it's all really interconnected. When I went to try to figure out how to write this book, well, it was just going to be the big passes. And I did a few test drives. I took my bike, my camera, a friend to help out, and I just loaded it in the car, and we went see how many passes we could drive over and document in a weekend. And excuse me. Take a drink here. We'll be working real hard pretty soon.
Yeah, it gets pretty miserable.
So I realized very quickly that from a bike, it was not only very dangerous, but very inaccurate. And how are you going to take pictures?
Right.
That are worth anything. And how are you're going to miss stuff. You're going to miss details. And not only that, you got to stay on your bike. You got traffic and everything. So I realized that from a vehicle, you had the ability to speak into a recorder all the information you needed. Just drive along,
right,
and just spew into the recorder as much, that stream we're driving by, conditions of the road, the mountain ranges we're looking, just everything. Just talk it right into there, and worry about getting it on paper later.
Right.
Meanwhile, every time you see a picture op, you pull over and jump out of the truck. Then I would sit in a coffee shop or what have you. I'd do that for days at a time or weeks. Then I'd sit in a coffee shop for days at a time. I'd sit there with maps, my earphones with my recordings in my head, and just writing furiously, poring over maps. And usually at some point, like day 3 or 4 into the same coffee shop, one of the owners or the people working there, "What are you doing? You got maps out?" And so I'd explain it to them, and they were always very enthusiastic, keeping me caffeinated so I could get it done. But so that's the answer to no. I didn't ride them all, but I have ridden all over the state all these years, and in order to provide a book that was the quality level that I knew we would all appreciate, I had to be accurate and I had to be thorough,
Right.
and that had to be done from a vehicle. And you know, taking wilderness landscapes all these years, shooting photos of them, I had to actually. I spent all those years avoiding any sign of civilization in my photos, and suddenly the road was the subject.
Right.
But it was still a landscape, a beautiful landscape, one that I knew if people saw the photo, they would absolutely want to ride that road. And so I just adapted, and that's I think that answers 2 or 3 questions.
Wow.
So we're in some flats here before the hill. It looks like
Yeah, this isn't bad here. It's pretty nice.
a little flat top.
Yeah. Well, I think I was under the impression that this climb that was coming up was a lot shorter, and I didn't realize it's the same thing as rabbit ears, except steeper. And
You tricked me.
I lost a little discipline, and I was going a little harder than I should have, but for the sake of a single video stage to work out to, it's a perfect effort.
Yep.
But if you're riding a century,
Yeah.
or this is actually 110 mile century, this is probably
the full
not
loop there that I was looking
yeah
at.
the full loop. Probably not a good idea to go this hard. I was paying for it later.
How fast you going?
How fast? I'm not moving at all. We're on our trainers.
We're going real slow.
Or we're going 50 kilometers an hour.
Well, you know, I as you can see, I don't have a computer on my bike. And I'm not against them by any means. I just sort of grew up without them.
Old school.
And and Mr. Graywall, Just Jeet was his first name. Just Jeet. He was quite a character, and he was a stern old guy. And he's just like classic traditional. You must feel it from your heart. You must know your cadence. You know, and it's like. And then of course I got a computer later on. I love them, you know, but I haven't had one since a lot of these innovations have come out.
Right.
You know, it's amazing what you can do with the information that heart rate and power output and stuff like that give you for your training.
Well, it's a great training tool if you're racing or you're training to race.
Yeah. Your VO2 max.
Yeah.
I mean, really, if you can peg your maximum output and know when you're right there.
Right.
That's the key. I mean, because in most intense cycling situations, it's not a matter of necessarily, unless you're a superstar, of who you can drop. It's a matter of who can hang on. And it's not so much if you can get away, but if they can keep up.
Right.
And
you race your strengths and you find a place where you can hurt people.
Yeah.
That's what you do. You know, if you're a climber and you got a hill, you go and you hammer on the hills and blow everybody up behind you. And if you're a sprinter, you let them do that.
You let them do it.
Just let them go.
If you're lucky, you'll pass them at the end.
Well, I think you and I probably fell in love with cycling about the same time in the 80s. My heroes were, Greg LeBon, Finney, Davis Finney, Connie Carpenter, Alexi Graywall, Team 711. When I was a teenager, I had pictures of these guys on my wall. It's kind of geeky thinking back, but I, you know, I aspired.
Cheryl Teagues.
Lamont and Cheryl Teagues. That's funny. Or the poster from Tarzan.
That's right.
Farrah Fawcett, Tarzan, yeah. Well, I wanted to get strong. I wanted those freaky legs that they had on those stills, and so I used those to aspire to that. Now, what motivated you to race? And I mean, you kind of touched on that a little bit.
Well, I was a cross country runner. It's a distance runner. I was in the, I was running, sub 4:10 miles, and sub right around 2 minutes, half miles, and then the cross country was 5Ks and 3 milers, and I really liked that a lot. Shorter distances were like, well, focus, it'll be over soon. It's serious pain, focus, but the longer distances, you kind of get rolling and relax into it. And it was a thinking man's race at the distance, more so anyways. And I really loved that about it. And seeing the Coors Classic in Wash Park, I mean, the bikes were amazing.
Yeah.
And the riders were so fit.
Oh,
it was to see him in person was really impressive.
The Moracle Bismarck was what really took me for a loop. I mean, watching the guys sprint up the wall, I mean, that was amazing how fast they went.
Yep.
Well, tell me about the Red Zinger and what the significance of that race is to you.
Well, it was my introduction, and
to racing, right?
It was a lot of things. I was an artist too in school, and the posters were cool. And of course, I wanted a nice bike, and my first job I ever had, I saved all summer and bought a bicycle. I just liked them, and and the Zinger came through, and then was the Coors Classic.
Little climb here, guys.
And kept getting bigger. Got to go see him.
Big ring up front. Sorry, go ahead.
But the thing that was driving me was, I think, there's my truck. Was, I think it was the mountains more than anything. I mean, I know it was. I'd been dreaming of living in mountains since I was a kid, watching National Geographic or looking at the magazine and watching things on Mount Everest on black and white TV, when I was a little kid. And I know that sounds archaic, but I mean, I do have a memory of seeing the Apollo moon landing on TV. It's quite a ways. That's one of my earliest memories. But you see all these things, and you're inspired. And if they can do it, you can do it. And I want to do that. But first things first, I wanted to live in the mountains. So I got up there, and well, can't really help but get on a bike, or you go live in the mountains, and you're either going to be getting on a bike or in a kayak or on a mountain bike, or maybe putting on a climbing harness, or just guys like me. It's inevitable. Well, I ended up doing all those things except the kayaking part. But the races are what really got me just blown away at the potential that I had. That, no matter how inspiring your father can be, unless your father's an astronaut or a champion athlete, or
you had your idols.
They're your king, they're your hero, but when you see those other people, you start dreaming about what you're going to do.
Right.
I think that's really just a visual, seeing it, fitting right into my love of, to ride up one of those big mountain passes.
How to use the dash. The dashboard is composed of a number of different tools that provide data which allow you to emulate the physical demands of the ride. The first and most important tool on the dash is the effort meter. The effort meter provides a graphical representation of how hard you should be working during a specific part of the ride. In this video, we're ascending a small climb while trying to keep a good pace for other riders behind us. Watch how the effort increases as we continue to ascend. The effort meter is color-coded to help you quickly know what zone you should be training in, be it the weight loss zone, aerobic zone, anaerobic zone, or red zone. Each zone is based on a percentage of your maximum effort. Blue, which is below 70%, is your weight loss zone. Green, between 70 to 79% of max, is your aerobic zone. Yellow, between 80 to 89% of max, is your anaerobic zone. And red, from 90 to 100% of max, is your red zone. Be aware that the difficulty of each video is greatly dependent on the time spent in each zone. At the top of the effort meter is your heart rate goal displayed as a percentage of your max. Percent of max is calculated as your actual heart rate divided by your max. This value can be used to challenge yourself further by teaching your body how to precisely regulate efforts. Some heart rate monitors allow you to input your max heart rate and then automatically calculate your percentage of max. The gear ratio and resistance indicator provides you with two ways to determine what gear or what resistance you should be working at. The gear ratio is the best way to make changes in resistance if you're on your bike and trainer. With shifters, you can quickly make changes to gearing to simulate changes in pedaling effort. This animation provides an idea of how the gear ratio works. Notice how above the blue line, the numbers are ascending from 1 to 10. This corresponds to the gear that's in your rear cassette. Below the blue line are the two rings in the front, 42 being the small ring, 52 being the large. The resistance value is a tool to be used if you're on a spin bike. Most spinners are comfortable with a 1 to 10 scale used in classes. Basically, a 1 is a soft pedaling, easy spin resistance, whereas a 10 is a slow, leg-churning, difficult grind where you have to force the crank arms to turn. The cadence value allows you to identify what your pedaling cadence should be. While the cadence, resistance, and heart rate indicators attempt to synchronize, often it's difficult to match everything at the same time. Start out using either cadence or resistance while matching the effort goals. Much like the effort tool, the power tool provides a graphical representation of how much power the cyclist is producing during a given time. The power tool is a nice alternative or backup to the resistance and gear ratio tools. The power tool is a much more accurate way to identify sudden changes in power. At the top of this tool is a number that reflects a percentage of maximum power. What is maximum power, you might ask? This is a little bit more tricky. Unlike max heart rate, your max power is a minimum average over a given time interval. For example, suppose you're sprinting for the finish line. The competition is fierce, and you're out of the saddle hustling for all you're worth. You cross the finish 30 seconds after you begin your sprint and then rest. Now, suppose you're looking at the power profile for this effort. You might discover that the first 5 seconds you're generating about 800 watts. During the next 5 seconds, you're generating 750 watts. And then after that, 700 watts, and so on. As you get tired, your power slowly tapers off. Finding your max power over 30 seconds is simply an average power output over that 30-second interval. This is a much more accurate means of finding your max than trying to find an instantaneous max power output. Your percentage of max is calculated by dividing your current power output by your max. Most power computers can automatically generate the percentage of max value for you. The dashboard has 3 graphs. These are a really cool way to find out where you're located along the timeline of the ride. The graphs are divided by a bar, showing you where you're located along them. The top graph displays a hill profile. The middle graph displays the effort profile, and the bottom displays the power profile. Keeping your eyes on these are a great way to identify changes as they approach. The moving map provides some nice information about where you're cycling. Roads, topography, landmarks, rivers, lakes, and more can be identified so you don't feel lost on the ride. Also note, north is always up. I'm done. Have a great workout.